that then. I'm just looking at what SkyMet had to say about February. We're only in February and we're talking about the heat. And, we've had the hottest February that we've seen all the way since 1901. And they're saying, SkyMet goes on to say that in the coming months, that's March, April, May, it'll only get hotter from here on and we could experience some heat waves. So putting that into context, well, we said, let's look at a couple of stocks and let's look at potential beneficiaries. Well, the direct beneficiaries obviously is going to be, if it's going to be so hot, then you're going to be looking at, AC makers, you're going to be looking at fan makers in there. Havells, well, they'll qualify in both ACs as well as in fans. And if you're looking at coolers, then Symphony comes into play. So these are some of the companies that could be in focus. And we've already seen some of these stocks, like a Voltas. It's been quite strong after losing market share and reporting really dismal margins. So there appears there is some pre-buying that's playing out as well. Refrigerant chemicals as well, like SRF, they could be another beneficiary of that particular play. Now, we are at CNBC-TV18 had spoken to Tata Power's top boss, Mr. Sinha, and he said that he's expecting power demand to clock close to around 230 gigawatt. Remember, the last year in summers, it was around 210. So he's expecting a 10% increase. He goes on to say that even globally, power demand goes up by around 1 to 2%. In India, it goes up by around 3 to 5%. But he's saying that in this summer, we could see it go up by as much as around 10% odd. So clearly, power demand is going to be strong. I also was tracking the IEX, DAM. That's the daily traded, price per unit. And out there, in the last few days, you've seen that the per unit cost has moved up substantially. So that's as well telling you that there could be some potential beneficiaries if someone hasn't tied up their power. And so let's focus on a couple of those stocks. JSW Energy, we had the management who joined us over here. And they said close to around 17 to 18% of their total supply or their total power is not tied up. So they would enjoy merchant rates. The others, yes, they would be beneficiaries like a Tata Power, NTPC, etc. But most of their power is regulated. So that's why we're not focusing on that so much. Besides that, well, if there is a big surge in terms of power demand, then discoms could be forced to buy power via the exchanges. So then IEX could gain on the volume parameter. While Coal India, because of higher power demand as well as higher e-auction prices, that could be another potential beneficiary. But what if there is a power deficit? Then we're looking at another angle. Diesel genset makers like Cummins as well as Kirloskar oil engines, they could be potential stocks you look at. While UPS and inverter makers as well. Hopefully we don't get a deficit, but if in case that is a scenario, then some of those, V-Guard, you have Exide as well as Amara Raja. But guys, don't take it so seriously. If it's going to be so hot, what are you going to be consuming? A lot of ice cream, maybe drinking a lot of beer, and bottle, demand as well could go up. So maybe Varun beverages and all. So we just said, in every adversity, sometimes there is some, some opportunity that comes up, just highlighting the stocks that could be in focus. But Reema, it's not just the hot summer, right? You're talking about drier monsoon as well. Which are the stocks that could get negatively impacted?
Well, absolutely. The specter of El Nino is also possibly looming in front of us. Now, according to a leading global weather forecaster, NOAA, that's National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, they're saying there's a 55 to 60% probability of an El Nino this year. And El Nino historically and typically has been accompanied by deficient monsoon. So which is where the drier monsoon comes in. And if that is the case, then there are going to be a few stock sectors which face some challenges. So the first one is going to be agrochemicals, because a deficient monsoon impacts sowing, it impacts cultivation, and therefore it will negatively impact the demand for fertilizer and pesticides. So names like Coromandel, Sumitomo Chemicals, PI, UPL, Fluorochemical, Tata Chemicals should be on your radar. Then the obvious ones, stocks which are exposed to the rural economy. Now, the rural economy is already under stress due to higher inflation. If there is a deficient monsoon, then inflation goes up, but also farm incomes get affected, which means demand for tractor makers, two-wheelers comes down. NBFCs, which lend to the rural economy, like MMM, FSL, Mahindra and Mahindra Financial Services, L&T Financial Services, Shriram Transport, keep them on your radar. Consumer goods, the Dabur, Godrej Consumers, Maricos of the world, paint companies, and also pipe companies. These are all the companies which are linked to the rural economy. So that's a space that you need to watch. In fact, UBS analysis also show that Indian FMCG large caps have shown a clear deceleration in revenue growth in the last El Nino episode, with the year-on-year revenue growth falling from 10% plus to 0. Another space to track will be the hydropower, because there could be lower hydro generation if there is a deficient monsoon. So NHPC, and this may be a bit far-fetched, but IPCA Laboratories has also been flagged off by UBS because they are saying there could be lower demand for anti-malarial drugs if the monsoon gets impacted this year. So IPCA Labs is another one. So this is just a ready reckoner that, what could lie ahead if indeed El Nino does play out. Early days, but if El Nino happens and there is a deficient monsoon, there could be some stocks which get impacted.
By the way, good piece, both of you. But at least for all of our sake, I'm hoping that you guys remember what happened. Everyone was expecting a super cold winter in Europe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
And then
The winter never
let's hope it doesn't take place, right? I mean,
but the weather is crazy.
So exactly, for me, I think the big takeaway was that for Nigel, another reason for helping United Brewers to do well. So I guess,
but it's not working, Dinesh. It's not working. They're posted such dismal results. I was wondering, you have to do something more, I guess.
You should really do something.
No, but the weather. I mean, I was talking to somebody in San Francisco now on the west coast. It's actually cold. I mean, it's freezing. In Europe next week, apparently, in some places, temperature is expected to be in the negative. And of course, we are reeling with this heat wave.
Topsy-turvy. But with that, we're going to slip into a very short break. On the other side, we'll invite Pankaj Tibrewal